Right. So, welcome back. Let me just try and get that a little bit level. So we're back to so number 2. We've done the first episode in the electronics. That was a couple of weeks back now. And we just looked at items we might need to use during this series. So what are we going to look at today? Well, today we're going to look at a massively simplified version of what electronics is, to the best of my knowledge. And we're going to look at how we start to plan our electronics in our builds. So we're going to look at that as well. Now, I'm not quite sure yet how far we're going to go today. I'm not sure whether I'm going to try and keep these in short, bite-sized bits, like, under half an hour, or whether I'm going to keep them going for a little bit longer. I don't know at the moment. It all depends how it goes, because I too am just coming to grips with all of this. So, as I've said, I'm learning alongside everybody else. So, with that said, we'll crack on. I just need to get a marker pen. And we will drop this down here. Like so. So, what is electronics? So I'm going to simplify this as much as I possibly can. And I don't really want to go massively in depth on this, because I don't know massively in depth. So bear with me. Now, everything in the universe is made up of atoms, as is electronic, the current and or whatever it is in the cables. So in an electric cable, you've got the copper wire. The copper wire is made up of an atom. Now, as I understand it, an atom has a positive charge in the center, and that's the nucleus, and then you've got 4 of these negatively charged particles that revolve around this atom. Right, so this atom is your wire core. So that's what we're saying, right? And it's made up of this here. So if you imagine your wires. Oh, here we go. Apologies. Wait, every time I cross that. Holly, get down from there. Get down. Come on. It's in the window. So, yeah. And you've got your positive charge in each of these atoms, and this makes up your copper wire, or whatever wire it is you've got. Now, just to simplify this, we're going to we're just going to put one. Now, is it one nucleus? That's the nucleus. I can't remember what these are called. We'll just call them particles. We put one particle on each atom instead of the 4, and then what happens is, when you apply voltage, the voltage acts as your it pushes these atoms around, these particles. So what happens is, the voltage comes along, it pushes the negative particle onto the atom, As that moves in, it pushes that one on, and so on. And that gives you your electric flow. So your voltage comes along. Your voltage is the battery or whatever power source, and just imagine your voltage as a pushing force. So your voltage is what is effectively pushing your electricity around your wires in what's known as a closed circuit, a closed loop circuit. So obviously it will go all the way around. So you've got your positive and negative there, and it will flow that way. So you add your current, your voltage, you add your voltage, and then it starts pushing on the particle that jumps onto this atom, which causes a chain reaction, which pushes them along like that. If that makes sense, I'm trying to make it sound simple as I can, but not necessarily always going to work out. Electrons. Thank you, Joe. Joe knows about these things. Yeah, so thanks a lot for that, Joe. I just couldn't remember what they were called for the life of me. So yeah, it pushes the electrons around in that. So you get this loop of electricity or current running round. That current is measured in amps. I'm not going to go into that because I don't think we really need to know it for what we're doing at the moment. What I will do, I will look into this a bit more in depth, and then as we get further on in the series and we start doing more complex things, then we'll perhaps come back and review amps and voltage and current and all that. But I just wanted to give a basic understanding of what happens. And now another thing you may come across, or you will come across, is resistors. I want to touch on resistors briefly because they are important in what we do. So if you have, so let's say we have an LED. I can't remember what the representation of an LED is on a wiring diagram. No, again, it's gone. I knew it earlier on, but now I don't. So I'm just going to draw it as it sort of looks. It doesn't look like that on an electric drawing, but so, and you apply your current, and let's say your LED is rated for 3 volts, and you have a 9-volt battery here. If you apply that straight to there, it will blow that. This will fizzle, catch fire, blow up, whatever. It will be destroyed because there's too much current for that. There's too many volts for that LED, or too many amps. So what you can do is you can add a resistor. Now, what a resistor does, in essence, the simplest way I think of breaking this down is if you imagine a dual carriageway, let's say like the M25, we're over exaggerating, we're oversimplifying again. You've got the M25, and when your dual carriageway or your M25 is at full capacity, let's say that it's carrying 9 volts. When it's full up with traffic, that's 9 volts, right? Then you come to your LED here. But if 9 volts goes through that LED, it's all going to go wrong, right? So if you imagine your resistor as a narrowing of the road works even, so that all of a sudden, instead of having 3 lanes, you're down to 2 or 1 lane. So all voltage is suddenly reduced, it can't go through at its full capacity anymore. I think a resistor is a bit like that. So they've normally got a numerical value to them. They've got coloured bands on each resistor, and you can look them up on a table, or you can I've got a bit of kit that I just slot them in, and it tells me what the rating is for that resistor. And so what you would need to do is put a 6-volt resistor in there roughly, and then that would reduce your 9 volts by 6 volts, meaning that is safe then, because the current that could come out of that resistor will be 3 volts. If that makes any sense at all. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at explaining it. Diode symbol with an arrow. Yeah, I can't. The diode symbol, is that's something like, no, that's the transistor, isn't it? Oh, I'll look it up, Joe. So Joe's knows a lot more about this than I do. Thankfully, she's in here. So the triangle with the straight line at the point. Yeah. Does that make sense, Joe? What I've said in really basic terms. Have I got that right? Let's just clean this off. Yeah, it's because everybody's got different ways of understanding it. I just don't want to be giving. I don't want to be giving rubbish advice out. I did go and look at all this up before I came on here. I just can't remember a lot of what I've picked up. I do keep going back and trying to. So anyway, you don't really need to know what it all is in order to have fun with your electronics and your hobby. I'm one of these that likes to understand what's going on. So we'll move on. How do we integrate this into our hobby? Well, I did say before I was going to use my Corvette, the Snowberry, as the example for what I'm doing. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So let me pop this down to one side a minute. So essentially, when you get your kit, you need to look through your instructions very carefully, which I'm just going to grab these from down here. Oh. And you need to decide what it is that you're going to add to your kit. So I know that what I want to add to this Snowberry, I want some lighting. I want the lighting to come through the side windows in the hull. I want lighting to come through various points in the superstructure on the top. And I want some green and red lighting on the masts and just general lamps around the deck. So I've then got to decide. I know what I want. Make sure I've got all them items available is the first step, which I've done. I know I've got those items available. Make a list. Work it out in your head where they're going to go. So to work that out, you need to then have a look at the structure. Once you've started building it, and work out what you think is going to be best for that build. So I looked at this, and I'll get to why there's got silver foil in a minute. And I decided that there's 3 types of lighting that I could have gone with in the bottom. I could have gone with a fiber optic cable, and that would have meant running a clutch of cables to the top of an LED. And we will look at this, another time when we actually do this, but just so that you know, a fiber optic cable, basically you have your LED, and then you have your fiber optic cables, and they come in like this, and they attach to the top of the LED, not the sides, as many to the top as possible. And then you have a piece of heat shrink sleeve that goes over the top, and then that holds everything nice and neatly together, so that when you're finished, you've got your LED all in a sleeve. Sorry, like that, with all your cables coming out like that. Now, each one of those cables will have a little light shining out of the end of the cable. Depending on what sort of fiber optic cable you get, will depend what sort of light comes from it. Some fiber optic cables will light up the whole side of the cable and the end, and some will just only shine a light through the end of the cable. Again, this is something we'll look at later on in the series. The problem with that is the light out of the end of the cables is not terrific. It's not really that bright from what I've seen. Obviously, you can probably increase that brightness, but and there's also the added complication of you've got wires everywhere. So I decided that one was out. The second one is to use LEDs. Again, you've got even more cabling to put in, and you've also got to then position your LEDs, and that is complex work in and of itself. So that one was out. So I decided that I was going to go with this little setup here. Now, please bear in mind, this is only a very, very rough setup. So basically, I have got a strip of LEDs. They're just one color. They're not adjustable. And I've soldered some wires on the end. And basically, if you attach a battery, let me see, I should have one somewhere. And of course, now this is going to be where there's no battery available. Bear with me. Oh. Let me just get the electronics box out. That one. This one. It's this one. Strange, there's a battery missing out of there as well. Now, these are very, very bright, these LEDs that are on, and they can also be dismantled. So they're very bright. So my plan for these, I've got what, 1, 2, 3, there's 3 per clutch by the looks of it. 1, 2, 3, and you can cut them there. So my plan for them is to cut them into equal segments. So I should have 1, 2, 3, 4 lots of LEDs. I'm then going to place them. Now I'm probably going to place them on the underside of the deck in 4 equally spaced intervals, and then the light will shine down. The purpose of the foil is to reflect the light back up. This in turn, I'm hoping, will give a range of lighting effects out of the portholes on the side of the hull. So where the nearest areas to the LEDs will be quite bright in intensity, and then they'll fall off a little bit as though it's light coming from a corridor maybe, and then they'll pick back up again. So I'm looking for something like that. So that's my aim for beneath the deck. So for that to work, I need to start getting together what I need. And the first thing I've got to do is measure out how much cable I need. So I need to roughly work out how far apart each of these is going to be. And then cut my lengths of cable so that they're ready to connect to the underside of the deck. So we're going to do that now. So here's my first dilemma. I can either do that now and carry on, and then we work through the electronics on this build as and when they come up. I'll come on and do another segment, and until we've done the electronics. Or I can talk through everything I've got planned and then start working at it that way. No, I think we're best to go through as I've said. So right, so we've got 4 of these. We've got the light, so we want the first one to be roughly about here on the bottom of our decking. Have I got a tape measure or a ruler? So we're just going to use the edge of the ship as a guide. So I'm going to want the first one roughly there. So we'll put this roughly, we'll put a mark on the side around there. And then I want them fairly evenly spaced. So I'm going to put another mark around about the middle. Yeah, about here. And then I'm going to put another one roughly here. So we might get away with 3, and we'll keep 1 for upstairs. The dog's going to start barking. I'm just going to let the dog out. Go on out. Holly, go on out. Yes. Right, so they're evenly spaced. Now I just need to figure out roughly how long's between each of those. Unfortunately, the tape measures in the. Have I got no tape measures not there. So we're just going to have to use the little ruler as a guide. Or we could use the vernier calipers, they're a bit longer. So the vernier calipers are, let's see, what do we get out of each of them? They're about 20 centimeters long. So roughly, so we're looking at about 24 centimeters, roughly. We'll bring that back a bit. So if we say 20 centimeters in between each set of lights, if we allow 20 centimeters of cable, we're going to be fine. So we need to join them together, we need 2 lots of 20 centimeters and 2 lots of black 20 centimeters. Let's see what I've got measured out already. Now this is the first one, so this is going to be the one that needs to go out of the ship. This is the one that I need to allow. So really, it's pretty irrelevant. I need to leave myself plenty of cable, so I'm not going to cut that right back, because at the moment I don't want to leave. I don't want to end up with not enough cable. Let's pop that there. So this is the cable that's going to go out to the power supply. So we need to also look at what are we going to use as our power supply. I already know what I'm going to use. So most people tend to put a battery compartment or a battery glued to the side of the boat on the inside, you know, something like that. They'll do something like that and then have the like a PP9 clip attached to it. I don't want to do that because I tend to think that these can link and so on, and plus once the battery power in them goes, you've then got to look at dismantling it all unless you put in some sort of flap, and so for me, I just don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a small device that's going to be my power box, and it's going to be a remote power box. So I'm going to build a little box for it here, and this battery will sit in here, and there'll be an on-off switch on it, and then from that on-off from that box, there will be. Bear with me a second while I find them. So from that box, there will be one of these jack plugs here. So this will be inside the box, obviously with the on-off switch somewhere in between there and there. And then this will sit somewhere on the hull of the ship. So I need to make sure that I leave enough room for this to get access to this. And then the plan is that as I start building my collection up, each of my model kits will have one of these devices in, and it will be flush with the surface. And so if somebody comes in and I want to show them my model lit up, all I have to do is go along to said model, plug that in, turn it on, and it will light up. That's the plan. So, and then when I'm finished, turn it off, unplug it, and then that box goes away somewhere safe and the model goes back on the shelf. So obviously with that design in mind, the other thing you need to think of is where you're going to place this. You've got to have enough room to have the flexible lead so that it's not going to be sort of bent over on itself. But you've also got to leave enough space so that when this is flush with this in here, that you've got room for this to plug in underneath. You know, I can't, if I put this, for example, if I put this down here on the bottom, I can't then come along and plug this in underneath because it won't, somebody's going to have to hold this end up while it's lit up, which sort of defeats the object. The other thing is to put it on the back side of the ship, but then on one side you are going to have this huge lead on the side, or make one of the portholes a little bit bigger and incorporate it into one of the windows. That's another option I have, which I may do. I'm not certain on that yet. It's quite a big. It would work. I could drill one out, but I'll think on that. So yeah, so that's going to go. At the moment, I'm planning on putting it roughly around here somewhere, so just in front of or behind the rudder, and then that will go underneath there, like so, and attached to this here. The first set of lights will go there. Then you've got the cable into the next set and the cable into the next set. From that last set, I can either close it off there, so it will finish there, that stream, but I'll add another line in with this set of lights that goes up above deck. Or I can run a separate set of cables from this power supply join here, over in here. So you'll get two come off to do the LEDs, and you'll get two come off to control everything above the deck. And they'll come through a point in the deck, probably underneath the superstructure somewhere, and then from there they'll go off to their different respective areas, whether it be fiber optics, LEDs, or even the last set of these. So that's the plan on those. Ready? We've got that. There's not really much cable. They are tinned already. Tinning is a process with a soldering iron in where you cut your cable and then you flow solder into the cable, and it makes it, it tidies it all up and makes it easier to apply to circuits. Soldering is not a strong point of mine at all. So I opted on this occasion to give me some time to practice before I have to do it on one of these sessions. I got some solder-free joins specifically made. And you could do this if you don't want to solder. There's always solder-free connectors available out there for pretty much everything. Now, these are specifically made for the LED lights that these. And I'll show you how they work in a second. So what we're going to do is let's get our cable out that we need. So we want some red and black. Put some black there. I think the red's in the other box. I just need the red out as well. Just wondering whether that might be, it's not going to be quite long enough really. Although it might be. Just see. If I do that, the base to the side, just looking on that, just double check on here. So if I put that down there, yes, that will make, okay, yeah. That will give me, yeah, I'll get away with using that one. Need to make sure. So I'm just going to take a little bit more off of a little bit more off the end. Just make sure I've got, there we go. There we go. And the same again. These are basically just mechanical wire strippers. They can be extremely helpful in the fact that they just remove what you need removing. You don't have to get your sharp knife out and start cutting away at the wires like you used to have to do. It makes it a lot quicker, a lot easier. And we'll break one of these out. Now we're in unknown territory because I've never actually used one of these before, so I'm hoping they work right. We've got, just checking it's we've got to, there we go. Oh. Right. Now the only thing is, right, so that has to go, this has to be soldered on to the end of this. That's the only way for that to work with these, because one side's designed, just double check, one side's designed to go, yeah, we could try, but I don't think it will work. Because this is designed to have that flat surface. Yeah, no, that's supposed to go on there like that. That's what that is designed to do. So we'll slot that in there. And that pops under there, like so. Make sure you've got positive and negative wired up right. Come on. Like that. They're labelled. Positive to red, negative to black. And then just close that. And that is your one connection done. That's that first one done. Then we'll come along with the scissors and we'll make our first cut where it says, don't cut into the terminals, whatever you do. Excellent. That will become our end that we solder on to this. We'll solder these onto here. And then this will go to our next piece. Now that is not 20 centimeters. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. I can change that. That's not a problem, but I'd rather try and keep this as simple as possible without starting to muck about cutting things and rewiring things and so on. What have I done with that? Where have I put them? There they are. So let's just measure from roughly there. Yeah, that's about 17 centimeters. So we're a little bit short. Let's just see how that looks on the inside of the ship. So again, I've only got the side as a guide. Remember, they're not going on the side. And that goes to there. Yeah, that's a bit too short. You want to make sure you leave yourself with plenty of cable. So what we're going to have to do is, let's just open up the other side of this. There we go. Right, I see they've put complicates it even further. They've made special little connections for these. So I can either I do not have any more of these connections they've made in here, so I'm just going to cut the cable and lengthen it, and then put some heat shrink sleeve over it to protect it. That's what I'm going to do. It's not an ideal situation, and please remember, I don't profess to be an electronics expert. I'm just doing what I can. So I'm just going to cut that. Right. Unfortunately, my solder stuff has not arrived. I said earlier that everything had arrived, but I've just realised my soldering bits and bobs that I ordered have not turned up, which is somewhat annoying because these are not tinned, so we'll just twist these. On this end, we will red and I've got the black cable out. I didn't get the red out, did I? And here we go with the red. Now I'm going to add I'm going to add about the same again as that was. And while I'm here, I will cut some more lengths ready for the rest of the build, because I know I'm going to need more. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to take this off. I'm going to need various lengths because I've got to go up and down the ship, and also up and down the masts and that. So we need another one of these. I said about 20 centimeters, so I'm going to leave myself plenty. And I'm also going to leave another couple in the kit, just in the box ready. and they'll go in the ship hull to be used at some other point in time. I need that one. I need that one for now. Sort these out in a bit. Let's just get these together. It's always a good idea to check that your cables and your wire are very much the same, so that there isn't a problem connecting them together. There is a problem with this cable, but these are multi-core threads, so they're made up. The strand in the middle is, I don't know, let's say 50 little strands all twined together, whereas this is just a single copper core. It will still conduct, but I would rather have a multi-core thread the same, because they don't join together very well. So I have a couple of options now. I can either stop now and wait until I get the multi-core thread. I think that's going to be a better option, to be honest. That will solder together, but it's not going to be a very... But it will work. I know it will work because I've done it before. I've just forgot to replace this red cable. While I think on that, I'll go over and have a look at the chat. I see the chat's been busy. So Gordon's in. Hello, Gordon. And Joe came in. It's nice to see you back, Joe. People have been asking where you've been. I think, did I message you the other week? It was your birthday, and I said hello. She's just telling me about the electrons and what the symbol is. Jan came in. Hello, Jan. Joe's on about what it looks like on the electrical diagram as well. I'm kind of right, good enough to get the point across. Thanks, Joe. That's all I want to do. Just yeah. Yeah, resistors are measured in ohms, not volts. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's the formula. That's Ohm's law, I believe. Volts equals... Oh, it's absolutely hammering it down out the back. Simple solution for boats is just a ribbon of LEDs inside the boat hole. Yeah, and there it is. She's obviously just said that just as I was about to pull mine out. Ribbon of lights, that is. Paul Chaplin's in. How you doing, Paul? No, I'm not going to use mains, no. Alternatively, you could place a butt connector after the connector, adjusted the correct output voltage, so you can pretty much plug anything into it. And you go, all right, okay. Yeah, you're way more advanced than I am at this. So very effective and really cheap. Your teeth. You know what the cheap alternative is to them. Yeah. I get what she's saying now. I wonder what, for a minute there, I wonder what he was on about. And then yeah. I've never used my teeth to do the cables with. No, I've just never done it. Yes. You know what? You're right, Joe. I didn't think I've got them. So what Joe's saying, instead of soldering, I could use these. I completely forgot I'd got these. And these come with every set of crimpers you get. They're basically just connectors, spade end connectors, and they just plug into each other. You get male and female, or you get ones such as this. I think that's the smallest one I've got in here. Yeah, it is the smallest one I've got. So basically, that would go on there. And then you bring your crimpers over, and they've got colours on the side. Which tell you where to put your yellow, red, and then you just put your in the right position. Now hopefully this is going to work, and then you just crimp down. I might have squashed a bit too hard on that. And what it means is you've got a decent, that's a good connection there. You've got a good connection that will not, you've got no exposed wire. I have pressed a bit too hard on that. They're obviously made of better stuff than they used to be. And then we just pop this in on this side and do the same. Same over here. Around about there. And just squeeze down. Oh, no, that's not going on very well. Which really is down to the fact that the connectors are a bit too big for the wire I'm using. What I need is some smaller ones. We can get that. Can put another crimp in there, or try to. There we go. Yeah, there we go. And then what you can do if you're not sure, if you've got a multimeter, there is a feature on there which is which, if I remember correctly, I was told years ago it was a continuity test, and it basically just tells you there's a connection. It's a form of an audible signal, and it just tells you there's a connection. So, for example, we want to know if that there, so what have we done, the positive, we want to know if that has a clean signal to this. And what should happen is if there's no break in the cable, yeah, you get that signal, that beep that says there's a clean signal through. I'm not going to put a deliberate break. No, I'm not going to put a deliberate break in to show you, but basically it wouldn't make that sound. Which is a way that some people, when they're looking for breaks in complicated systems, they use the continuity tester to find a particular line on the circuit that has got no continuity in it. It's dead. So that's a way you can test it. You could also just put the other one on, the black one, and plug a battery in. If it lights up, it works. So now we're going to measure off. Apologies for the dog. Holly. Holly.
Wait. Get down. Shut up. It's just a pause. That was lovely.
It work all right?
Yeah.
So you really want to try and keep, if you can, try and keep your cables the same length, because once they start getting different lengths, yeah, it doesn't always work out great when you start. That one's slightly shorter, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut another piece. Just going to cut another piece, roughly about the same sort of distance. This cable is slightly thinner, and I don't really think this is going to work. This type of connector is going to work for this. So my alternatives now are to strip, solder. 3 attempts at something beginning with S. Solder the 2 connections together, which would be perfectly okay on a joint such as this. Another thing you can do, if you're just testing, you can just twizzle them together, which I've done before. I grew up putting my own car radios in, and a lot of the time it was cables like this, and you'd cross them and then just twine them together like that, and then put electrical tape over them. That's how I grew up. But we'll look at one more thing before I finish today. And what I'm going to look at is the shrinking sleeves that can be used. So, and they come in different colors. You can get these from anywhere. I got mine off Wish. I had to wait for them to come from Japan or China, but they were very cheap. This was about under £5 for a whole set of them, different sizes. So we're using a black cable here. So we're going to put a black sleeve on, and what we'll do is we'll pop the sleeve over there like that, and then we're going to do what I said, and we're going to twine them together, and you'll see how safe, if you're not up to spec on your soldering and you're no good at it, and I'll be honest, I am no good at soldering. It's my soldering is very, very poor. I struggled with it in college. When I was doing my engineers thing, I had to do electronics was part of the syllabus I had to do. Let me just, it hasn't twined together properly. So let me just get that again. Make sure that's nice and tight together. Fold that on itself like that, and then you want to slide this heat shrink sleeve over the join like so. Put it roughly somewhere in the middle, and then you're literally just going to get a lighter or a form of heat. If you're young, I recommend you let an adult do this, please. If you're young and you're in electronics anyway, then you should have an adult supervising. But especially when it comes to this. And then you literally just want to hover the heat underneath like so. Turn it round a bit. The heat there, and then just leave that for a minute just to cool down. And you've got a nice solid connection there, held in place by the sleeve. It's totally safe. No current going to come through there and electrocute you, and you're good to go. You could even now go one step further. I've got a bigger sleeve. I could put that over the two of them and then, knit them together. And that will hold these two wires in here. That one feels a little bit loose, actually. It all depends how tidy you want it to look inside. So that's where we're at now. What I will do now, before I come back on with the next electronics, I will install these onto the side of the ship, onto the bottom of the ship, sorry. And then when we come back, we'll see it on the bottom of the deck. I don't envisage any problems, and we should be roughly in a better position to carry on with the build. And then the next time we'll look at a different type of lighting. We're probably going to use some LEDs. We may even use some colored LEDs. And the birds, so the bird is going nuts. They love this. They hear the birds outside, and it sets them off. They're communicating. Let me out. Get us out of here. We're being held hostage. For God's sake, somebody come and rescue us. Get the bird SAS in. There you go. They love it. Well, obviously, I don't think they love being captive, but we look after them as best we can. Anyway, I'll digress. I've gone off on one there. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful for what it is. I'm sorry it's such a bit of a mess, if you like. I've tried to put everything across as easy as I can. If there are any questions, please ask. I won't know the answer to all of them, but I will go away. I will find the information, I will learn it, and I will come back and answer your question if you have one. There is so much more to electronics than what I've just shown you here. This is a mere drop in an ocean compared to the knowledge that proper electricians and electronics experts have. This is a massive area with so much information. It's unbelievable. So if you're one of these people that's does electronics for a hobby is maybe far more ahead than what we are here. I would ask that before you discredit anything I've said or start pointing out, oh, he's got that wrong, please be aware that I too am trying to learn this. And, I'd be much more grateful if you could just say, maybe in a message, you might have gone wrong here or there, and maybe help help us learn rather than, become one of these people that just goes off hating on whatever. You know what I mean? So, because I'm sure there's going to be some people look at it and they're going to go, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're right, I don't. I'm just doing the best I can. And I hope that's been good enough. Leave me any feedback. Be grateful to hear what your thoughts are, whether you think it's something that should carry on. If you've got an interest, has this inspired you to maybe think of putting some electronics together? There are other people out there that know a lot more than me. Should you want to do more advanced stuff, then I can point you in the direction of people that know a lot more about it than I do. I am hoping on getting there myself. So I am going to be looking at a lot more stuff in detail. I'm hoping to get at some point in the future a power supply and start looking at a whole array of electronics. That's the intention. At the moment, we're starting basic. Everyone's starting at the same point. We all know nothing. Those of us that are doing this for that reason, it's hopeful that we'll learn something along the way. Don't forget, there was no live stream last night, but I do want to mention there is going to be a new podcast starting up. Now, I gave this some thought, and I think it's going to be separate from my channel. It's going to be a new thing I'm starting. It's going to be every other week, I think. It's going to be half hour to an hour in length. And we're going to be talking about various topics in the modeling community. If you've got any ideas for subjects that you'd like to hear, message me them. We'll get round to looking at them at some point. And if maybe you want to come on and do a podcast, let me know. At the moment, I've got a few people that I've asked. I'm waiting to hear back from some of them. But hopefully it's going to be something that's going to take off. I've got some great things planned for it. And I've thrown all my cards up in the air and I'm waiting for them to land now and see roughly where I can go with this, what I can do in the future. So yeah, the podcast's a new thing that I'm going to be doing, and primarily aimed at people maybe going to work. They can put it on their phone or plug their phone into their radio, and they've got a modeling show podcast. So hopefully that will work. Okay, I think I've rambled on enough. We've probably gone on, 1 hour 14, way more than I wanted to. But thanks for watching. I will see you all next time. Hopefully it won't be as long a gap this time as it was then. And I look forward to seeing you all then. So thanks for watching. Don't forget we have an off-air hangout almost every night. Anyone is free to come that's a member of the SprueSurgery Waiting Room. If you're a member of the SprueSurgery Waiting Room, there's a link goes out every night on the channel, and you can come in and join and chat with me, Bob, John, Ian, Mark is sometimes there. We have a good laugh. It's very friendly, very, very friendly. And we just have a good time. And we all sit there and model. Some of us just sit there and talk. I normally pull a model out to do and then sit there and do nothing all night because I'm busy talking with everybody. But that's the way it is. So once again, thanks a lot, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now. Now I've got to move all this junk off the desk. I can't get to the keyboard. There we go.